It is Wednesday. No, it's Friday. It's National Tell a Joke Day. Tell you the truth, I don't have a joke. Tell you the truth, I just am a joke. Anyway, have some fun today. Today I'm going to talk about something really cool, inspiring, and serious. It is a fabulous book by Dr. David Shoemaker. It's called Living Thelema. This is kind of a newer edition of it, 3 or 4 years ago. And I was honored by Dr. Shoemaker to write a little foreword to it, which I will happily share with you today. So without further ado, this is my little foreword. It didn't make it to my book, Allow Me to Introduce, which came out a little bit before I wrote this introduction, but I would have included it in this book. Oh, by the way, are you familiar with this book, Allow Me to Introduce, An Insider's Guide to the Occult? I'm going to plug it right now, okay? Because I want it to stay in print long after I'm dead, and I can only do that with your help. This is like 35, close to 40 years of my introductions, similar to what I was asked to do, to other authors' works. Some of them are classic works, like for John Dee and Aleister Crowley and things like that. And some are modern authors, like modern authors. And the reason I thought it was important to collect them all in one book is because they may be short little essays. Okay, an introduction or a preface or a foreword is usually pretty brief, just 5 pages probably at the most. But I want to do the best I can to encapsulate the wisdom of the author I'm introducing. And consequently, at least in my mind, it is the best of my writings, and probably the least read. Now, I know most of us read the introductions and the prefaces and the forewords to books, but when we buy somebody's book, we want to get into their book. Okay, so we sort of skim over the introductions and forewords. Well, I think that's kind of unfortunate, because at least in my case, if you skip over my introduction, you're skipping over me giving my absolute best that I can at the moment. And so they're usually tasty little things. And my publisher, Weiser, agreed that they should be enshrined in a collection all of their own. And that's what Allow Me to Introduce is. So if it's among the books of mine that you don't have in your library, it won't break the bank. And it will help assure that Allow Me to Introduce stays in print for a few years more anyway, or at least until the apocalypse. But right now, I'm going to read you something that was not included. Living Thelema. A Practical Guide to the Attainment of Aleister Crowley's System of Magic by David Shoemaker. Foreword by Lon Milo DuQuette. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Aleister Crowley died in 1947 at the age of 72. I can't believe I'm older than Aleister Crowley. Wow. I'm 10 years older than my father. Well, anyway. But I digress. His final days passed rather quietly, in contrast to an adventurous life odyssey that was anything but quiet. Remarkably, few of his more celebrated contemporaries rushed to publicly associate their names and careers with the man who in life called himself the Great Beast. Fewer still were inclined to step forward and eulogize him. There was, however, a handful of devotees who were profoundly saddened at the news of his death, who ardently believed that humanity had just witnessed the passing of a great soul, a Buddha, a Mahatma, a Magus. To this tiny circle of associates and students around the globe, Aleister Crowley was more than a world teacher. He was a poet, prophet of a dawning new phase in the evolutionary trajectory of human consciousness. Historians might be tempted to characterize these die-hard disciples as true believers. But Crowley's gospel of do what thou wilt is not a belief system, nor is it a philosophy or a religion. At least, not as those terms are commonly used and applied. The method of science and the aim of religion is how he described the scientific illuminism of the magic of Thelema. And just the other day, I'm digressing here, I got out a copy of the Equinox, the method of science, the age, and the aim of religion. That's the slogan for his scientific illuminism. What makes Crowley's system revolutionary and what differentiates it from its more ancient precursors is the prerequisite that a subtle and profound shift of self-identity must first take place in the practitioner before any meaningful spiritual advancement can proceed. An awakening to and a realization of his or her essential place and significance in the cosmos. The Thelemite magician must accept the awesome and terrible responsibility that accompanies the self-evident and liberating realization that he or she and every monad of consciousness is the singular center of the universe. This shift of personal identity and position is so subtle that one might not immediately recognize the scope of its universal and cosmic significance. But for those who have fully awakened to this simple revelation, the nature of existence and our place in it reveals itself far more clearly than it does to those who have not. Only an individual who has accepted the awesome responsibility of this new independent self-identity is sufficiently in tune with the dynamic forces of the new aeon. And what of the new magical practices themselves. On the surface, Crowley's program appears to be simply a collection of updated and artfully mutated versions of ancient techniques drawn from diverse traditions, which have simply been fine-tuned and adjusted to accommodate the expanded realities of the newly awakened Thelemite magician. He also organized the courses of study and practice to more smoothly acclimate the magician to each new graduated degree of awakening. However, it's not simply the mastery of rituals and magical techniques that distinguish the magic of Thelema from its old aeon predecessors. It is the nature and quality of the illumination itself as it manifests in the life and the character of each magician. Predictably, not all post-Crowley Thelemites were in agreement about the future of Crowley's work and legacy. Some rightly observed that most of the world's population was not yet ready to appreciate the spiritual nuances and the seemingly radical doctrine of do what thou wilt, or able to grasp the universal significance of a pantheon of gods referred to as the beast and Babylon. There were few, however, who held that it was not only a matter of time before Crowley would be honored and recognized as the prophetic voice that heralded the arrival of a new era of human thought and a radical new formula of magic. They were correct. But it would take 20 years before the world's attention was again drawn to the great beast. 4 people from among the surviving Crowley contemporaries were particularly instrumental in this Thelemic revival. Jane Wolfe, early Hollywood film actress and Crowley's personal AA student, who had lived and studied with him in the 1920s in the infamous Abbey of Thelema in Sicily. When she returned to California and became the revered teacher and active supporter of Agape Lodge OTO, first in Hollywood, then in Pasadena, California. Carl Germer, Crowley's personal AA student, and after Crowley's death, heir to the administrative leadership of both Crowley's magical orders, AA and the OTO. Phyllis Seckler, personal AA student of Jane Wolfe, an initiate resident of Agape Lodge OTO in Pasadena, California. And Grady L. McMurtry, personal OTO student of Aleister Crowley and the only American OTO member to personally visit and receive the OTO 9th degree from Crowley during his in England during his final years of World War II. Now, I must also mention, I'll digress here for a second, because these are the kind of the formal students, that Francis Israel Regarde was also instrumental in keeping Crowley's legacy alive and interest in his life and work. I had the great honor of knowing Israel Regarde. But I digress. These 4 individuals were certainly not the only Thelemites and contemporaries of Crowley who would, in the years following his death, feel called upon to continue his magical legacy and formally carry his teachings forward. I simply mention these 4 in particular because they are for me my personal link and direct link to Aleister Crowley. They are my family tree of Thelema. They also happen to represent the initiatory family tree of Dr. Shoemaker, whose marvelous work, hopefully, you will soon hold in your hands. Crowley died a few months before I was born, and Jane Wolfe passed away when I was only 10 years old. Carl Germer died in 1962, about 5 years before I took up a serious interest in magic. Consequently, I never had the opportunity to personally meet these historic luminaries. My direct and formal OTO link would come in 1975 at the hands of McMurtry and Seckler, who, as two surviving members of the OTO's Sovereign Sanctuary of the Gnosis, the Ninth Degree, who initiated me in their home in Dublin, California. A few months later, Phyllis received me as her AA probationer. I confess that I've never been what one could call a good student. I've never been professionally diagnosed, but I'd wager I suffer at least a moderate level of attention deficit disorder. I was a classic class clown in elementary school. I was expelled twice in my high school years, not for doing anything naughty, just for being disruptive and growing long hair and draft counseling and recruiting for the SDS and things like that. I was a naughty boy, okay. And was expelled twice in my high school years. I dropped out of college in my second year of study. It's just the 1960s were just too interesting to stay in college. Okay. I've never responded favorably to structured education programs or group learning environments. Nor have I ever been able to hold my tongue or be tactful or behave overtly respectful to teachers or authorities who have not displayed to me some form of superior wisdom or extraordinary character traits. However, when I do run across such individuals, they trigger my intense attention, awe, and respect. At such a moment, education ceases to be a labor and becomes for me a religion. Aleister Crowley, Jane Wolfe, and Phyllis Seckler, and Grady McMurtry were such rare characters. And I'm proud to be a twig on such an august family tree. Perhaps after you've absorbed the wisdom of Dr. Shoemaker's marvelous work, Living Thelema, you'll find yourself part of the family tree as well. Love is the law, love under will. I wrote this on December 31st, 2021. Anyway, that's my foreword to Dr. David Shoemaker's Living Thelema. And I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you'll be with me tomorrow, hopefully, for Saturday morning cartoons. Until then, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.